All right, we're going to get started in just a second. Thank you all. My name is Brittany Cheatham. I'm going to turn it over to Ann Webb, who's going to MC. This afternoon, we'll hear from some voters who have had their votes challenged in this case, and then we'll also hear from representatives with the North Carolina NAACP, North Carolina Black Alliance, and Common Cause North Carolina. So we're going to give folks a second to kind of file in.
Can you make sure voters say their names clearly and spell them?
Yes, please. Y'all hear that when you come to the podium to speak? Please say your name clearly and spell it for us.
Add one person.
Okay.
Felix Soto after all.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
Good afternoon, folks. My name's Ann Webb. I'm the policy director with Common Cause North Carolina. Just going to be emceeing this press conference here. Want to thank everyone for covering this incredibly important issue and just highlight very briefly that this is the case that Trump would have brought if he hadn't quite won in North Carolina, and that is a national story. This is important for all of us to be following, and it has implications not only for North Carolina, all of North Carolina's voters, but voters all across the country. So thank you for covering this. I'm going to start by introducing the illustrious president of the North Carolina NAACP, Deborah Dix Maxwell.
Good morning. We really shouldn't be here. This should have been decided already. It shouldn't have been biased against people who are overseas, of color, who early voted and did other things. We should not be here. When you lose, one should accept defeat graciously and not try to circumvent and use every which way to change the scope that over 700 people through the North Carolina Board of Elections gave Judge Allison Riggs the victory. We should not be here. Judge Griffin should not rest on the laurels of trying to circumvent minority voters. They should not have used a group QR code, There are a lot of people who don't know how to use them, and I myself personally have a problem sometimes trying to get into it. But that was a method of which you had to report. So, as I say again, we should not be here. We will determine and make sure through the North Carolina NAACP that we will not be here again, because we do not support voter suppression or oppression of any kind, way, shape, or form. So we stand firmly that those votes should count. Judge Riggs should be instated. And if this continues, we will continue to be back and we will fight, because everyone votes count, everyone votes matter, and those votes decided that she was the winner. Thank you.
Next, we're going to hear from Marcus Bass, Deputy Director of North Carolina Black Alliance.
Thank you very much, and thank you to the individuals that are assembled here today. I want to make sure that folks are very aware. First of all, my name is Marcus Bass. I serve as the Deputy Director of the North Carolina Black Alliance. I have been out here since before the trial began, the hearing began, and there are individuals behind me that were denied access to the courtroom. When we talk about 60,000 voters, that is a very big situation. And it's not just the 60,000 individuals that are impacted. It is 11 million residents across the state who are being denied democracy right now. And to see individuals that got up at 8 o'clock this morning to be here and were denied access, plaintiffs that were not allowed to come in, is shameful. I think one thing that is very clear is that there's a lack of transparency in the way the election is being handled in this moment. 60,000 individuals rightfully cast a vote. Their registration was affirmed by the process in this state. They were casting a vote in November, and now here we are 4 months later, and Judge Griffin is trying to say that their vote should not count. That is unfair. President Maxwell said voter suppression, and I want to make sure everyone understands this is not about individuals fraudulently voting. This is about an individual trying to undermine the electoral process of democracy in North Carolina. The right to vote is a right to vote. Somebody should say that. The right to vote is a right to vote. And in this moment, denying eligible voters the right to vote is not what the courts should be hearing in this moment. There are serious decisions that the Supreme Court should be hearing and has heard over the past decade. But now we see partisanship inching closer and closer into our democracy, and the acts that we're hearing today in the hearing and the consideration for disenfranchising 60,000 voters is something that should not happen in this court. It should not happen in this state. It should not be supported by this legislature, and we are asking the judge to seriously take consideration and allow the voters of North Carolina's decision to stand and keep Allison Riggs as a Supreme Court justice. The last thing I'll say is, as I pass the conversation off, is that gathered behind me are individuals that are not Democrat interested, are not Republican interested. They are interested in the will of the people being cast in a decision called a vote in a process called democracy that should be upheld by the courts today. And so the hearing room did not make room for the millions of individuals that should be paying attention. So we have had this press conference to hear from the individuals that have been inside of this courtroom, from the individuals that have been hearing this court case and talking about enfranchising voters. And in this moment of an attempt to disenfranchise not just 60,000 voters, but 11 million residents across the state, the citizens of North Carolina, the people are saying, not on our watch. Thank you very much.
Okay, we're going to hear from Jimmy Patel-Nguyen, Communications Director with North Carolina Asian Americans Together. And after him, we'll start hearing from affected voters.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Jimmy Patel-Nguyen, Communications Director at North Carolina Asian Americans Together. And I'll just get straight to it. Judge Griffin wants to throw out 60,000 votes just because the results didn't go his way. And he's mostly targeting Black, brown, and Asian voters. That's not election integrity. That's voter suppression. Asian American voters in North Carolina, we turned out in record numbers this year. We did everything right. We registered, we followed the law, and we casted our ballots. And yet Judge Griffin's challenge targets Asian voters at nearly 3 times the rate of white voters. That's not a case of someone being a bureaucratic stickler. That's an attack on our right to vote. It's a direct attempt to intimidate our communities and to make us question whether our votes will ever truly count. But let me be clear, they count. Every single one of these 60,000 votes is legal. This election was counted, recounted, and confirmed twice. Judge Griffin lost. He can't change the rules after the game is over. We've seen this playbook before, moving the goalposts and sowing distrust or doubt and trying to silence voters of color, but we refuse to let that happen. Asian Americans are the fastest growing voting bloc in North Carolina, and we're using our voices, we're making our votes count. We stand in solidarity with every North Carolinian whose votes are being challenged, and we will not let bad faith actors decide which votes count and which don't. The voters have spoken. The recount confirmed it, and it's time to respect the results and certify this election and move forward. The court's got to reject Judge Griffin's blatant attempt to erase voters from our democracy. Thank you.
Okay, next we're going to hear from Denise Carmen, who was one of the voters who filed an affidavit with the amicus brief on behalf of voters. Thank you.
Yes, I will. Yes, as she said, my name is Denise Carmen, DENISECARMAN. Pardon me. I am not the polished public speaker that the folks that have preceded me are, but this is important to me, so.
You're a voter.
I have been registered to vote in North Carolina for over 20 years. I have been a registered voter for over 40 years. I am an elections official in Chatham County, North Carolina. I help people vote. I make sure that the elections are run smoothly and cleanly in that county, and I'm proud of that work. I feel strongly that the way that this entire situation has been handled is not in the intent or the understanding of the laws as they are. I was not made aware that I was on this list by any of the means that have been discussed today. A friend of mine let me know I was on the list. That's the only way I found out. It's only through the efforts of these organizations that are here with us today that I have had an effective way to use my voice and to say that I am legally registered to vote, and everything in the state of North Carolina says that I am a legal voter, and there's nothing that should challenge my vote in this election.
As you can see, voters are affected by this threat to their right to vote. And next we're going to hear from Rachel Arnold, who also filed an affidavit with the amicus brief.
Hi, my name is Rachel Arnold, RACHELARNOLD. I'm a registered voter in Guilford County. I have lived at the same address since 2009 when I moved to the state. I have been a registered voter in 3 states and never had a problem until now. I did pull my voter registration application from the County Board of Elections office, and every piece of information that Justice Griffin has decided needs to be included on those is included. My driver's license is there, my date of birth is there, my address is there. I showed my voter ID when I went to vote, and apparently my mistake this year was using the laws afforded to me to vote early. This is absolutely an attempt to steal the right of people to act in their best interests. And no one should be turning a blind eye to this, because at any moment it could be your vote, your candidate, your values that are on the line. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you. Next we're going to hear from Mary Kay Helling. Right here.
Hi, I'm Mary Kay Haling, MaryKayHeling. 9 years ago, we moved back to North Carolina, and one of the first things we did was register to vote. I voted for 9 years, no issues. So this year, after we voted early, and I am an unaffiliated voter, just so you know, this year, a while after the election, I got that little card in the mail. Now, my husband and I registered together. He didn't get one, but I got one. Couldn't figure it out. I didn't know what I should do, but I thought, okay, I'm going to scan this QR code. And I spent a long time trying to navigate this site. I looked and looked and looked, and you may be on this list. Well, I couldn't find my name. So I threw it out and said, I'm clear. And then Common Cause, I saw online a website they had that you could put your name in. Bingo, it pops up. Yes, I'm on that list. Now, why couldn't I find it through the card that I was given? Anyways, I went to the Board of Elections, and mine is a clerical error. Though I voted for 9 years, fine. I voted early. I showed my driver's license. I don't understand why he wants to take my vote. And that's all I can say is I want my vote to matter. Thank you.
All right, we have 2 more voters this afternoon. We have Audrey Miggs.
Good afternoon. My name is Audrey Miggs. That's AudreyMeigs. I serve as the Senior Policy and Advocacy Coordinator at North Carolina Asian Americans Together. I grew up in North Carolina. I was raised in Asheville and studied political science at Davidson College. I now work in Raleigh at an organization that works to uplift Asian American voices in our state. I'm on the ground getting people registered to vote. I've advocated on Capitol Hill for educational access, and I plan to spend the rest of my career empowering communities and promoting justice for all. Despite my whole life being rooted in North Carolina and my dedication to serving my communities, Jefferson Griffin is trying to throw my vote away. And it's not just my vote. he's trying to throw away tens of thousands of votes, just like mine. I want to highlight for a moment how this is impacting the Asian American community here in North Carolina. This year, more Asian Americans voted in our state than ever before. As an Asian American myself, and as part of an organization that serves our population, I'm very proud of our community's growing voice. And as our community continues to grow, so does its potential impact. And that's why it's so critical to speak up against attempts like these to undermine our democracy. Earlier this month, our organization called over 1,400 Asian Americans whose votes had been challenged in this race. We wanted to ensure that they were aware of the situation and know how they can protect their vote in future elections, despite not having done anything wrong in the first place. I'm tired of candidates using my vote as a pawn in their political game and entertaining these baseless claims. The AAPI community turned out in record numbers for this election, and Judge Griffin is attempting to cut those numbers down. I and so many other organizers did the work to bring those record numbers to the polls, and certain politicians want to throw that work away. So again, on behalf of myself and the many Asian American voters affected, the thousands of other North Carolinians who Judge Griffin is attempting to disenfranchise, I'm calling on him to respect the recount that reaffirmed Justice Riggs's victory, and on the North Carolina Supreme Court to respect the will of the voters. Regardless of party or ethnicity or backgrounds, each and every one of the voters affected by the shameless power grab deserves to have our voices heard. Thank you.
Okay, we have one more voter, Felix Soto, who's going to share their story.
Hello, my name is Felix Soto. That is Felixsoto. I'm 18 years old and I'm an unaffiliated voter. 18, this was my first general election. I was ecstatic. Y'all should have seen me during the primaries. I was literally jumping for joy outside of my voting precinct. It was, my mother was quite amused with my antics. I am one of two voters whose affidavit is featured in the amicus brief that voted from overseas. I voted from Costa Rica because I received a fellowship position with University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, go Heels, where they give me a stipend. I defer my enrollment for a year, so I'll be starting as a freshman in the fall, on the condition that I complete at least 6 months of service from when I defer to when I have to come back for freshman orientation. I worked at a small animal vet in Costa Rica for 3 months. It was quite nice. I didn't know Chihuahuas got that small. And I decided, I so excited to vote, wanted to vote. And so I got a ballot sent to me. I filled it out, scanned it, emailed it into the Guilford County Board of Elections. And fun fact, I sent in a copy of my passport, because even though I scoured the entire, Board of Elections requirements and saw there's nothing that said I needed to submit a photo ID, I was like, better safe than sorry. And so I submitted that. And then the election worker said, actually, you don't have to submit that. It's not required. And I was like, okay, cool. I ended up having to resubmit my ballot because of a clerical error. And I thought, okay, this is great. I get to spend the rest of my time in Costa Rica, come back home for the holidays. And then my mom hits me with the news, so you're on a list. And I was like, which list? CIA, like TSA, goodness. But it was the list of protested ballots that Judge Griffin sent out. And that, to be serious, that was a slap in the face, because I worked so hard to get my ballot in, with all the different back and forth, multiple calls, email ping pong. And my parents worked so hard too. They're so proud of me that I am a voter, that I worked to have my voice heard. And this entire kerfuffle is an affront to all that I have worked for, that my parents have raised me to be a good person and to participate in our democracy. So I can only hope that people realize that the 60,000, that's a scary number, but every one of us is a singular person that wanted our voices heard, and that is currently being denied. Thank you.
All right, while I wait for Hillary Klein to come down here and share, I'm just going to share very briefly. There are a lot of voters, 60,000, 65, many more thousand voters across North Carolina who might have questions about what they can do if they're on the list and what they should do. And one thing I want to let folks know is that Common Cause North Carolina and dozens of our partners across the state are organizing rallies all across North Carolina starting next weekend, the 15th to the 17th, including a rally here in Raleigh at the state capitol at noon on Monday the 17th. These are places for people who are affected by this to come together and speak out. But we also encourage folks to go to our website, ccnc.me/Griffin, ccnc.me/Griffin. That is where you can find a link to look and see if you are on the list. It's an opportunity to get suggestions for how you can speak out online, reaching out to local media, telling other folks that you're on the list and how you feel about it. And you can also get information about how to reach out to your county board of elections to see if there's anything you can do to make sure that your vote counts. So I want to really encourage folks to go there. And I'm going to pass it now to Hillary Klein from Southern Coalition for Social Justice, who's going to talk a little bit about what to expect next in the legal framework here, and then we'll take questions.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Hillary Klein with the Southern Coalition for Social Justice. I am very privileged to have represented 26 of the impacted voters, as well as 7 nonpartisan organizations that are fighting back against this attack on our elections. Elections are for the voters to choose their leaders, not for the leaders to later pick and choose their voters. This is absolutely required for us to have election integrity and for us to have secure elections, that it is our voters who are picking our leaders. The court heard today a host of reasons, many independent ways and reasons that these election protests should be dismissed. They should be dismissed immediately. I think we can expect a court decision in the next week or coming weeks. The court indicated it would rule swiftly on this. Unfortunately, after that, I think we can also expect appeals, and I think we can also expect this to go all the way up again. I will note that the federal courts have noted that there are federal interests and federal claims at issue, and they have reserved jurisdiction. So it's possible this will also go further, and we will see proceedings in the federal courts as well. But what is absolutely crucial is that our courts step in and do their job to protect the voters of this state. That is why they are in office. That is why they have the power to decide things that they have. And we are imploring the courts to step in and protect not just the impacted voters who are able to step up in this litigation and provide affidavits, but all 65,000 voters and all of the voters of this state who are provided the right to dictate who sits in those seats of powers. Because it is the voters and the will of the voters that must dictate our future, and not leaders picking the voters instead. Thank you.
Okay, I'm happy to facilitate questions, especially if you can let me know who you'd like to direct your question to. All right, going. Oh.
Somebody give us a general update about what happened inside today.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kat Robles. It's Roblez. And I am Senior Voting Rights Counsel at For Justice. So we represented our clients today along with Hillary. We heard arguments from both sides on all of the protests that were filed. Obviously, our position is that all of these people, as Judge Riggs's lawyers and the state board lawyers argued, registered lawfully. We believe that they did everything they needed to do, And one argument that was made inside today that I want to reemphasize is that this is unprecedented. You may feel like you hear a lot about protests. This is not the normal kind of protests. We've had 400 vote margins. You ask for the recount, you accept what happens after that. So what happened in court today is not normal. This is not a normal protest. This is not a hearing we normally have. This is something entirely new. These are mass challenges. Essentially, the argument from Griffin's lawyers is that they are simply asking for the rules that were in place at the time to be applied. We believe that what they are asking for is to change the rules after the election. We heard from voters, include people who work at the boards of election, that they followed every rule. They were never told that there was any problem. And a lot of them followed up and said, here's a document that proves that you did everything right. So that's what was discussed in there today. I think as Hillary already said, there's no decision from the bench. You know, they need to consider everything and let us know what the next decision is going to be. Anything else?
Any other questions? Yeah.
I just had sort of a procedural question for Hillary or Kat. Say this did work its way all the way up to the state Supreme Court and they found in Griffin's favor. I know the federal courts have reserved jurisdiction over the federal issues. At that point, would you expect the federal court to issue some sort of stay of the state Supreme Court's order and then say, like, no certification of the election can happen until we take out this matter?
I would anticipate the parties to request that. But there are so many different ways that this could go. It's very hard to predict at this point. But I would expect the parties to request, if they want federal court review, to put any order that the state court has issued on hold.
All right. Any other questions before we wrap up?
If there's no questions, I have like a short personal privilege, which
Yes.
I just want to highlight. Latino voters was a really, really tough year for Latino voters. I think anyone who worked in this cycle knows that they were targeted so much more than they ever have been. A lot of false claims about people being not citizens, and we saw Latino voters 4 times more likely to be on this list than a white voter after everything else they went through, after they followed every rule, after they showed up after being intimidated. So I just want to lift that up to say how fundamentally unfair this is for everyone. And as everyone has said, it disproportionately affects Black, Brown, Latino, and AAPI voters who are already the ones being attacked by everything else. And they already jumped over every hurdle that's been put in front of them. And this is just a slap in the face. And I just want to uplift that community as well while we're here today.
All right. Thanks everyone for being here. Feel free to contact folks here in the crowd.